What is going on, everybody? Excuse me, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Stochastic NHL Strategy Show. I am your host, Josh Harris. No NBA tonight. NBA takes off on Election Day every year to get a voting initiative or something like that. I think they use the NBA arenas for voting. We're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about some hockey. Got big contest on DraftKings tonight. I don't know if FanDuel is even running anything because the last time they ran satellites for something for a few weeks, they accidentally made it a single entry and they didn't fix it. If you are thinking about hopping in the GPPs, I'm looking right now. The big 555 with 200K to first has 76 spots left. It's at 1125 of 1201. Bobby Boom, you're my spirit animal. I like nothing more than going to McDonald's coked up in my Tesla. That's what I just love about you. But yeah, the GPPs are a little bit undersized with no NBA tonight. But joining me as always to break down this 11-game slate, Slim Cliffy. Always looks like he's wearing his Knicks hat, but it's not Knicks. What's going on?
Knicks.
Looks like Knicks.
Okay. That caught me off guard. I would never be caught dead in a Knicks hat. Not that I'm even a big basketball fan, but that's just a bridge too far. Not a whole lot. Doing well. Pretty interesting slate last night. We only had 2 games. Both were 3-0 shutouts. Nashville got shut out by Los Angeles. New Jersey went into Edmonton and shut out the Oilers. Not a whole lot really to speak about from those games. It was Oilers couldn't beat Jake Allen. Nashville couldn't really generate anything against the Kings. Kings are on the slate again here tonight. We'll talk about them in a little bit. But much more interesting slate here tonight. Couple pretty significant injury notes. Players returning. Those are in the late game, so we'll get to those later. But couple really, really chalky spots that I'm not excited to break down. But I think you and I might be kind of on the same page there. But whenever there's really chalky spots, it always leaves the rest of the slate fairly wide open. And that's why, 11 games can be a pretty fun size slate. So ready to break it all down.
Yeah, I don't mind 11 games for these big contests. With these chalky spots, the slate is wide open. You just kind of hope that the chalk doesn't smash unless you're playing them, obviously. We'll talk about those spots when we get there. We should get into this slate, 11 games to break down. Before we do, though, if you are a Stochastic member who isn't signed up for NHL, if you're a NBA member, NFL, MMA, anything like that, the wonderful people at Stochastic have unlocked the NHL stuff for you guys. If you are a Stochastic member of any sport, you have free access to the NHL stuff tonight. If you are not a Stochastic member at all and you're looking to hop in here for tonight, you can click on that link in the chat. You can use promo code Stochastic15. That will get you 15% off your first week or first month, whichever you choose. Cliffy is showing the tools on the site. Also, a couple weekends ago, Stochastic member won the Millie Maker. If you're looking to get back into the NFL streets because to celebrate his Millie Maker win, you can use promo code MILL, MILL. That'll get you 30% off any NFL subscription. I'm done with NBA madness. Of course, like tonight, Point is out, Matthews is out. There's a couple possible late scratches. Could be a little NBA-ish tonight, but let's get into this slate. First of the night, the Ottawa Senators with a 3.1 total. Heading into Buffalo, the Sabres have a 3 total. Buffalo going Thompson, Tuck, Peterka, Cousins, Quinn, and Benson, Zucker, McLeod, Greenway. Ottawa going Kachuk, Stützle, Grieg, Batherson, Norris, Giroux. And then the bottom 6 is kind of an afterthought here. This is an interesting game right off the hop. It is a 6 total, trending towards a 6.5. But these are 2 pretty bad defensive teams with a couple of good lines. I do like Buffalo. One, the issue that I'm running into is, 1, their power play sucks. And 2, they're not fully correlated. I don't know what these power play units are. Lindy Ruff, going full Lindy Ruff, you never like to see it, but Thompson, Tuck, Paterka not fully correlated. Alex Tuck is on the second unit, and it is Jason Zucker and Dylan Cousins on the first unit as well. I still think they're fine because Ottawa is pretty bad defensively. You would be expecting them to get there at 5-on-5 at 19.8, which is the issue because at that price, there are a whole bunch of lines that I would prefer in that range. You can spend up for Minnesota. Tampa 1 is the same price. Colorado's a little bit more expensive. You have a bunch of other lines in that price range that are playable in equal or better spots. So, I think that's more of an MME play for me. I see, my dog is happy early and often. We'll put him outside in a second, but that second line of Dylan Cousins, Quinn Benson, they're super cheap, but I have minutes concerns for Quinn and Benson. They've been scratched at points this season. Dylan Cousins isn't having the best season. So if you are looking for a cheap line from Buffalo, I would go to the Zucker McLeod Greenway line for $100 less at 10,000 even. McLeod and Greenway have been pretty good this season. Jason Zucker, power play 1. That would be the line I would go to as a filler on Buffalo. Again, there are some really chalky filler lines. I'm just going to point out that Buffalo third line I think is fine. I'm not prioritizing them, but if you need something that cheap, I'd rather use them than Cousins, Quinn, and Benson. The Ottawa side is a bit more interesting. Brady Tkachuk, Stützle, Grieg, 18,000, 5.7% top 2 stack, 3.3% projected ownership. I think they're fine, but again, they're in that price range where I'd rather go play other lines. Like we'll talk about Columbus much later, but their top line fully correlated against the Sharks is only 18,100. There are other lines. That's just the example I'm going to use. They're fine. I'm probably going to prioritize. Not prioritize them in single entry. I would play them in MME. The line that I have the most interest in this game is the Ottawa second line: Batherson, Norris, Giroux. They're 15,300. They have positive leverage. You can't fit the super expensive lines in them, but you can get another decent stack in. If you use them, you get Norris and Batherson on the top power play unit. Claude Giroux probably plays the most 5-on-5 of any forward on the Senators. He just gets used in almost any scenario. So Norris and Batherson are on the top power play unit. Norris has his role. As much as we don't like him, he does shoot on the power play. So it would be Ottawa 2 is my favorite one in this game.
Yeah, I'll start on the Ottawa side. I will kind of echo what you said. I don't have a particular problem with Ottawa 1 here. Tkachuk, Stützle, and Grieg. Like Tkachuk and Grieg, 40 minutes together this season, 12.2 high danger shots for, 9.1 against per 60. So they're doing well. It's only a 40-minute sample, but Grieg and Tkachuk also played well together last year. Like it's just a pretty good forechecking duo. They're pretty good below the circles, that type of thing. My issue with I have 2 issues with Ottawa 1 here tonight. One, as you mentioned, I do think there are other lines in that price range that I'd rather play later in the slate. You mentioned Columbus. I'll just mention Winnipeg. Both lines in that similar price range on DraftKings that I would rather roster here tonight. It's Ottawa 2 that I do have interest in, and I did write up Ottawa in my picks article today. Head on over to Stokastic.com. Just go to the NHL section. It is free to read. You do not need a subscription for it. What I mentioned is that they're listed as the second line, but in their last 5 games, Giroux, Norris, and Batherson are first, third, and fourth by ice time per game. And if you look at even strength, there are 5 forwards getting at least 15 minutes of even strength time, and 3 of them are on that second line. Like this, they aren't quite the first line, but it's basically a 1A, 1B at this point. And, that Ottawa line of Batherson, Norris, and Giroux is $2,700 cheaper, coming in with low single-digit ownership as well. This game is a 6 total. It's interesting that it opened at 6.5, I think. So the under's been getting smashed. That's always something that I'm a little bit concerned about. But the other thing that I mentioned in that article was that when Buffalo's top line is off the ice, they give up 35% more high danger shots. The second and third lines have really not been that good for the Sabres. the second line basically all over the ice, and the third line, they've been good offensively, defensively, not so much. Whether it's the forwards or the defense, I think is a fair question, but that doesn't really matter for our purposes here tonight. I think it lines up as a pretty good matchup for Ottawa too. They are one of those lines in that, 14 to 16K range on DraftKings that I do have interest in playing here tonight. Buffalo 1 is the only line that I have any interest in on the Sabres side. Ottawa's not great defensively. I've watched enough Sens this season. They don't look as bad as last season, which, it's kind of a low bar because, God, they were bad last season. Their penalty kill is kind of what's been letting them down, because at 5-on-5, they're sixth by fewest high danger shots against per minute this season. They've actually been pretty good at 5-on-5. It's just the penalty kill has been subpar, to say the least. And you get Thompson and Peterka on the top power play unit. I wrote up Tage Thompson in the picks article. He's riding hot at 21%, but I think even some regression in that shooting percentage, he's going to start landing more shots with the way that he's shooting the puck so far to start the season. He's getting more ice time, like all that stuff. I don't have a problem with Buffalo 1 here tonight, because I think that they can take advantage of a pretty bad Ottawa penalty kill, but it's honestly Ottawa 2 that I have the most interest in this game.
We're on the same page there. Boston Bruins with a 2.6 total heading into Toronto. The Maple Leafs have a 2.9. Big news here. Auston Matthews is out, and that's a big loss, obviously. But this is an even bigger loss here tonight, because Boston takes the most penalties in the league. And, Toronto's power play has been struggling mightily. But, you take Matthews off of the power play, and it's just I don't see how it gets better. This is the only 5.5 total on the board. Now, Max Domi is going to slide up into that top center role in between Nyes and Marner. Second line is Tavares, Nylander, Pacioretty. Third line, McMahon, Holmberg, Robertson. Boston bringing back Lindholm, Pastrnak, Marchand for some reason. Second line of Zacha, Coyle, Brazeau. Tyler Johnson is going to be in the Boston lineup. What year is it? I don't know. But he will be in the bottom 6. Here's the thing. We've talked about it ad nauseum about the Bruins. Lindholm and Pastrnak are terrible together. They are fully correlated, but they're generating nothing at 5-on-5, and they're priced at $19,600. I cannot prioritize. They have one of the lowest totals on the slate as well. Only the Kings and the Flyers are lower, and the Ducks. We love the Ducks, though, so we can't slander the Ducks. We can slander the Bruins, and this line at that price, it's an easy cross out for me in 1 to 3. In MME, again, they're fully correlated against a Matthews-less Leafs with a pretty bad penalty kill. You can get to some in MME because they're fully correlated, but I'm not expecting much from them 5-on-5. If you get anything from them 5-on-5 would be a bonus. Again, it's just price here. At that price, I'm not interested. I'm not really interested in any of the depth lines on the Bruins either. The Leafs side is a little bit more interesting because with Matthews out and you put Domi on that top line with Marner and Nyes, they're 13,400. They're kind of a pivot off that super chalky Islanders top line. They have a 2.9 total. It's not awful. Boston takes a ton of penalties. You get Nyes and Marner on the top power play unit. Domi's a pretty good offensive player. He's just a black hole defensively, but we don't really care about that for offense. So I'm kind of in on Domi, Nyes, and Marner for a filler line. I'm not super in love with it, but the price is okay. You want to go to Tavares, Nylander, Pacioretty at 16.8. It's kind of a mid-range stack that I don't mind because the Bruins take a ton of penalties. They're not very good at 5-on-5. They've been good together so far this season. I like the Leafs. I don't love the Leafs, but there are playable lines for them. Not a huge fan of Boston here tonight.
So I want to talk about Boston's side really quickly. Like, I don't have a ton of interest in stacking the Bruins for all the reasons that you laid out. Low total, Lindholm and Pasternak kind of struggled this year. Pasternak got benched in their last game. Maybe that'll light a fire under him, and he'll just take his frustrations out on the Leafs here tonight. That would be a very Leafs thing to happen to Toronto here. One thing I did notice is Boston. It seems like Boston's entire problem was just playing Mason Lohrei. It's kind of an exaggeration, but it's kind of not. Like, if you're 10% worse than the league average, either offensively or defensively, like give or take, it's a really bad impact on your team. With Lohrei on the ice, the Bruins are 34% under the league average offensively by expected goals for, and defensively, it's 30% above average. They were like getting obliterated in his minutes doesn't put it strongly enough. And if you look at what they've done with him off the ice, they're still not that good offensively, but they are a lot better defensively. But what you mentioned about the power play and the penalties is, I think, the most salient point here. The Bruins are taking 4.3 minor penalties per game, or they're giving up 4.3 power plays per game, I should say. It's the most in the league, and the league average is like 3.1. So they're like 40% above that. So even though the penalty kill isn't terrible, they've still given up 12 power play goals against in 13 games because they're just taking so many penalties. Now, I don't really like the Leafs power play without Austin Matthews, but let's face it, the power play has been terrible with Austin Matthews this year. So it's like, how much worse can things possibly get? At the very least, Tavares, Nylander, and Pacioretty, they skate together at 5-on-5. That line is 2 out of the 3 guys on that line are on the top power play unit. Pacioretty and John Tavares have been pretty good together this season. About 70 minutes together, a little under 70 minutes, 20.6 high danger shots per 60 minutes. Like, the league average is like 11.8. They're creating a lot. And, as the second line, they're probably going to avoid the Charlie McAvoy pairing and all that. Like, I think the only line I have real interest in here is Tavares, Nylander, and Pacioretty. I'm going to be honest. Like, Max Domi's looked pretty bad all season. I know we said that last year, and then he had a good final 6 weeks or whatever it was when Matthews was injured. I just don't like. I could honestly see that Toronto top line getting broken up pretty quickly. I don't have a lot of faith in Domi and Marner here tonight. So for me, it's basically just Toronto 2, the Nylander, Pacioretty, Tavares line that I have any interest in stacking. But as a whole, I don't have a ton of interest for like single entry stuff in stacking anything out of this game. Like, we always say, like, David Pasternak one-off is fine. Willie Nylander one-off, like those types of things are fine. Toronto 2, maybe. Other than that, it's a pass.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to some of the chalk. Calgary Flames with a 3.5 total. Heading into Montreal, the Canadiens have a 3 total. Flames going Kadri, Kuzmenko, Zari, Coleman back on Coronado, Huberdeau, Sharangovich, Mantha. Montreal going Caulfield, Suzuki, Kirby Doc, Slavkovsky, Newhook, Jake Evans. Okay. Chalk Flames. When has that ever failed? I don't know. It makes me super nervous, though. They are very, very cheap, right? The Kadri line is 12.8. The Coleman line is 10.5. The Huberdeau line is 11,000 even. You can fit them all with Colorado 1, right? And that's the reason they're super chalky. The Kadri line, 2.8% top 2 stack, 9.3% projected ownership. The Coleman line, 1.6% top 2 stack, 8.8% projected ownership. Huberdeau line, 1.3% top 2 stack, 5% projected ownership. That's just a lot of negative leverage. And yes, Montreal sucks. And yes, their penalty kill sucks, but it's not like the Flames power play is great. It's not like the Flames are a great team 5-on-5. They create a lot of quantity, but not a lot of quality. It makes me nervous. yes, they're fine as a filler. But if your lineup comes together too easily, then, it's not sneaky. Not that you need to get sneaky, but it's just like, yeah, you put in Colorado one, then you put in Calgary one, and it's just like you're kind of on a very chalky path. I don't particularly dislike the Flames in this matchup. They have a very high road total. It's a very good power play spot. It's a very good 5-on-5 spot. It's just the ownership, right? Like, and it's the same issue I have with the Islanders. I don't want to. It's if these teams who are chalky here tonight were good, I would consider eating good chalk, right? But this feels like bad chalk because the Flames aren't a very good team. The Islanders aren't a very good team. Yes, they're in very good matchups, but it's like putting lipstick on a pig. At the end of the day, it's still a pig. So if you want to play the Flames, I think that's fine. And I would go to you take ownership out of the question. The line that I like the most is Kadri Kuzmenko Zari. There's tons of ways to get different on this slate, but for me, in my personal one lineup, I'm going to have a tough time getting to the Flames here. Are they fine? Yes. You can play whatever line. There's 3 playable lines for the Flames, but the way I build, I don't want anything to do with this chalk Flames roster. My interest is honestly on the Montreal side. Caulfield, Suzuki, Kirby, Dach. They're fully correlated at 17,700. They have a 3.1 total at home against this Flames team. This Flames team's headed to the lottery. Let's not pretend like they're a good team. Yes, they haven't been great of late, the Montreal top line. But it was Emil Heineman up there. They kept flip-flopping, Slavkovsky up there, taking him off. Kirby, Dach, Suzuki, Caulfield have had a good sample together dating back to last season. There's no matchup that really worries me on the Flames side, so I'm in on Montreal 1. You can do what you want with Calgary, but I'm leaning towards fading them.
Yeah, I'll say this much. With Calgary and the Islanders being kind of the 2 chalky spots here tonight, I would probably rather play the Flames than the Islanders.
Mm-hmm.
Montreal has been getting slightly better defensively as, they've gotten past the first couple weeks of the season, but slightly better defensively is still like 20% worse than the league average. You know what I mean? Like they're still really bad, particularly at 5-on-5. Zari and Kadri, like you mentioned, Josh mentioned, he just went for a little stroll, how they can create a lot of shots, but not a lot of quality. They're at Zari and Kadri are at 66 shot attempts per 60 minutes of 5-on-5, which is a pretty high rate. 2.6 high danger shots out of that per 60 minutes. Like they're really not creating any quality. Thing is like this Montreal team is like, they're like the good luck chalk. They're the slump busters of the NHL. It's like if you're going to create good quality, it's going to be against this Montreal team. So I don't mind Kadri, Kuzmenko, and Zari here. The reason particularly is that you get 2 out of the 3 on the top power play unit. Montreal's at 3.7 times shorthanded so far this season. That's 6th most in the league. They've given up 8 power play goals against in 12 games. And honestly, I think they're lucky to only have given up 8. So I don't mind the Kadri line here. 2.8% top 2 stack, 9.3% ownership. That is high. But like I said, I still do think it is a good matchup. And if I was going to play like some, over leveraged lines here tonight, I think the Kadri line would be one of them. I agree with you on the Montreal side. Like I do have a little bit of interest in that top line because, as you mentioned, with like Calgary's not a good team. Do you know what I mean? The league average for high danger shots against per 60 at 5-on-5, I said earlier, is about 11.8. The top line's at 12.8. The second line's at 15.4. Like the Backlund Coleman line is at about 15.4 high danger shots against per 60. Like they're not good. The one thing that's been kind of saving Calgary is their penalty kill has been mostly good this season. Montreal's power play shooting 25%. That screams some regression. But nobody is playing the Habs here tonight. And the Habs, the last I checked, had a 3.1 total. 3% ownership, 17,700 for a perfectly correlated line. I'm not targeting Montreal specifically in a single entry. If I was playing 20 max, especially 150, like I think I probably would have some Habs and I would probably come in over the field. Like, Calgary's not a good team. Montreal's worse, but Calgary is not a good team. And, Montreal's top line is perfectly correlated, which is something that none of the Calgary lines are. So I don't mind Montreal 1 here tonight, but they're not a priority for me. I do like the Calgary line as a filler, even if they come in fairly chalky here tonight. You're still on mute.
Thank you. I was just saying I do agree with you. If I'm going to play a chalky line here tonight, I much prefer the Flames than the Islanders. The Philadelphia Flyers with a 2.4 total heading into Carolina. The Hurricanes have a 3.7. Carolina going Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, Jack Roslovic, Martin Necas, Jesperi Kotkaniemi, and Eric Robinson, and then Jarvis, Stahl, and Martinook. Flyers, as far as we know at the moment, are going Konechny, Tippett, Frost, Michkov, Couturier, Forrester, and then Lawton, Farabee, Brink. This is a brutal matchup for the Flyers. It's legitimately one of the worst road matchups you can have going into Carolina. It is a brutal matchup. The Flames are good at 5-on-5. They're good defensively. They have a good penalty kill. Outside of a one-off Konechny, a one-off Michkov, a one-off Tippett, something like that, I'm out on the Flyers. The interesting thing is the Carolina side, because they do have the highest total on the board, and they're not getting a lot of ownership. Aho, Svechnikov, Roslovic, 19,100, 6.9% top 2 stack. Hard not to like that. 2.4% projected ownership. The issue is Roslovic is not on the top power play unit, and he's not super expensive. But if you do want to get more power play correlation, you can leave Roslovic off and put Jarvis or Necas on. But at that point, you're getting like to 20,000, 21,000, and you can just go play, the Avs at that point. You can obviously do it, and you have a much lower owned stack, and I think that's fine. The Flyers goaltending has been atrocious, so I think it's playable. I don't mind the Jarvis, Stahl, Martinook line as a filler as it is. Like, Jarvis and Stahl have been very, very good together going back to last season. They'll get the top line matchups, Konechny, Tippett, Frost. They'll probably play 16, 17 minutes. You'll see Jarvis play like 17, 18, 19 minutes, something like that. So as a filler, I don't even mind Jarvis, Stahl, Martinook. If I'm going to play Carolina, I probably take off Roslovic and add in Necas, Jarvis. But again, like I just said, at that point, I'll just go play Colorado. But if you are making multiple lineups, that's a nice way to get different on this big slate. It'll put you on a unique path. So I do, in a nutshell, really like Carolina. It's just you kind of have to mix some stuff up to make it work.
Yeah, not going to go long on the Flyers here. As you said, one off Konechny or Tippett or something like that. Like, I'll say fine, but there's nothing I'm full stacking. On the Carolina side, I wrote up Seth Jarvis in the picks article. I thought it was interesting. Since he got moved to the Stahl line, his shot rate has basically gone up like 50%. That's pretty important for a guy like Jarvis, who's not necessarily a big volume shooter. Like, usually when you roster him, you really need the points, the goals, and the assists. But not, like, if he's actually going to average over three shots per game or more, that brings the DraftKings shot bonus into range for him. And that makes him like a different DFS player than he would be otherwise. I do like Carolina 1 here. Aho, Svechnikov, Roslovic. They're going to get some depth matchups from Philly. I noticed Ryan Poehling is going to be out of the lineup for the Flyers here tonight. He's typically not been bad defensively for them. This is a pretty bad Flyers team. Not only that, like, are they not that good defensively at 5-on-5, but their goaltending with Sam Ersson out especially is atrocious. Like I mentioned in the picks article, between Ersson and Fedotov, the Flyers backup goaltenders have given up 20 goals in 5 games, and only 4 of those were starts. One of those games was a relief appearance for Ersson. So Flyers have pretty bad goaltending. Now, the Flyers do have a pretty good penalty kill, but the Carolina power play has been very good this season. And again, with nothing can make a penalty kill look worse than bad goaltending. So I do like Carolina 1 here. I think you can take Roslovic off and put on Natchez, put on Jarvis. I would probably put on Jarvis. Here's the thing, though, is that since Roslovic got moved up, he has the second highest shot rate on the team. He's only behind Svechnikov. Like Roslovic, he's not on the top power play unit, but he has been shooting quite a bit since he got moved to the top line. He has 17 shots in his last 5 games. So I don't mind just leaving Roslovic there. And 6.9% ownership, or 6.9% top 2 stack, 2.4% ownership. Phillies is also one of the most penalized teams in the league. So if their goaltending can't hold up and they take 4 or 5 penalties here, Carolina could have a good day on the power play. So I really do like Carolina 1 here. If you want to make it a full power play stack, no issue taking off Roslovic to put on, Natchez or Jarvis. Like I said, I would go with Jarvis, but I think this is a fine matchup for Carolina 1 because, as you said, they have the highest total on the board here tonight, and no one's playing them.
Yeah, that makes me nervous. But Carolina, in any matchup, makes me nervous because they're always come for the expected goals, stay for the shutout type of team. Let's get to the other super chalky spot of the night, and it makes me want to throw up. This is our first "this game sucks" of the night. Pittsburgh Penguins with a 2.9 total. Heading into Long Island, that sucks. The Islanders have a 3.1 total. Pittsburgh, one-line team here, going Crosby, Malkin, Raquel. They're 20,400. Their second line, third line, fourth line, they're super cheap. If you're doing some super expensive power play stuff, you can pluck one of the guys from there if you want. Not super interesting there. Islanders, Bo Horvat, Anders Lee, J.G. Pajot, Brock Nelson, Kyle Palmieri, Maxim Siplakov. Let's start with the Islanders. The Islanders' top line of Horvat, Lee, and J.G. Pajot, 12,700, 6.2% top 2 stack. That's not awful for an 11-game slate. That's actually really good for a line at that price. But their projected ownership right now is 23%. It's an 11-game slate. It's not a 5-game slate. It's an 11-game slate. Nelson, Palmieri, Siplakov, 14,400, 4.5% top 2 stack, 10.5% projected ownership. Like we talked about a few games ago, all the Flames lines cheaper. It's a better power play matchup. It's a better 5-on-5 matchup for the Flames. It's a pretty good 5-on-5 matchup for the Islanders, don't get me wrong. The Penguins' penalty kill has been pretty good this season. It's just been, their goaltending has been iffy, but their penalty kill is pretty decent. I have a very, very hard time putting Islanders into my lineup. I know the Horvat, Lee, Pajot line played well against the Sabres the other night, but that does not deserve anywhere close to 23% projected ownership in this matchup. If you're looking to play a chalk filler, I'm going to that Kadri line. I'm probably not going to play either in my lineup tonight, but I much prefer the Kadri line to the Horvat line. You take ownership out of it, I still prefer the Kadri line. You take power play matchup and 5-on-5 matchup into play, it's the Kadri line. You throw ownership into it, it's the Kadri line. So I'm out on the Horvat, Lee, Pajot line. Nelson, Palmieri, Siplakov at 10.5%. It's a little bit better, and the price is priced up where you can't fit the Avs. So at least, if you're going to play them, you're going to play them with a different top line that will get you on a more unique path. And Nelson and Palmieri have a very, very good history together. They're the one line that I trust will stay together. They create well together. Brock Nelson plays a ton of minutes. If anything on the Islanders side, it would be that Nelson, Palmieri, Siplakov, but I'm definitely out on that 23% projected owned Horvat line. The Pittsburgh side is super interesting because this Islanders team is a mess. Yes, it's Sorokin starting, and that does give me a little bit of pause. But this top line for Pittsburgh is 2.4% with Crosby, Malkin, and Raquel. They've been very good together. The issue is the price, right? You take Pittsburgh at 20,400, the 5 lines above them with a higher top 2 stack are priced right in the same range. So if you're playing single lineup, right? It's like, why would you take the sixth best line in that price range in your single lineup? Then you can, if you really like Pittsburgh, you play your best guys. Like the top two stack percentage isn't gospel, right? Just means for Pittsburgh there's a 9.5% chance that they're going to be a top two stack. Doesn't guarantee anything. They can be in that 9.5% tonight, but I'd rather go play Winnipeg. I'd rather play Colorado. I'd rather play Tampa Bay. So there's three lines right there. I'd rather play in single entry than Pittsburgh one. I think Pittsburgh one, the more lineups you play, the more likely I'm going to get to them because they only have 2.4% projected ownership. It doesn't take much to get over the field in MME. I do really like that line. It's just, between Sorokin and the other lines above them, I'll probably pass in single entry, but they're definitely viable for MME.
Yeah, I'm not going to go long on the Penguins here. I know the Islanders do have their injuries on the blue line. Pelech is out. Romanov is out. That does hurt. But the Islanders don't take any penalties. They're under 2 power play opportunities given up per game on the season. Now, the penalty kill isn't good when they actually do have to take the ice, but they're giving up the fewest power plays per game. So Pittsburgh only draws 1, maybe 2 power plays. Like it puts the onus on what's not been a very good power play this season to really do a lot of damage in limited minutes. I don't like that. 20,400, I just think it's too expensive. I agree with you. There are just other lines in that price range I would rather go play. I don't have an issue with playing them. They have been good since being put together. 15.9 high danger shots per 60, nearly 6 goals per 60. It's only been a handful of games, but they are perfectly correlated. They are a top line. They are probably all going to play around, if not over 20 minutes. I kind of agree with your assessment. Like if I was 20 maxing, certainly 150 maxing, I would have a lot more interest in Pittsburgh than I would in a single entry. Single entry, there are just other lines coming in with under 5% ownership projections that I would rather go play, and they're cheaper. So that's just kind of where I stand. On the Islander side, listen, there are 22 teams on this slate. If 25% Anders Lee or whatever, or John Gabriel Pajot, if that's what beats me tonight, then that's what beats me tonight. Yeah, exactly. I just can't get there at that ownership. It's just absolutely ridiculous. They are probably going to play 19, maybe 20 minutes. They are perfectly correlated on the power play, but Pittsburgh doesn't take a ton of penalties either. They're below average in that regard. And Pittsburgh has a legitimately decent penalty kill. It's kind of the one thing that they've actually been successful at this season. So, not a bad penalty kill. They've only given up 5 power play goals against in their 13 games so far. I agree with you. It's Nelson, Palmieri, and Siplikov for me if I'm playing anything. Coming in with less than half the ownership. Slightly, they do have a lower top 2 stack, but only about 10% ownership. They are also perfectly correlated. They also probably will get heavy minutes. This is probably a top 6 heavy team now with the way that their lines are set up. And, they've been generating 15.6 high danger shots per 60 minutes in 125 minutes together. That's pretty good offensively. If anything, it'd be Nelson, Palmieri, and Siplikov that I have interest in this game. Again, I'm not going to say don't play Horvat, Lee, or Pajot. I'm just saying that at 25% ownership or whatever it is that they come in at, it's one of those things if they beat me on an 11-game slate, then they beat me on an 11-game slate, and I just wake up tomorrow and go right back at it.
Yeah, the sun should come up tomorrow. No guarantees in life. Tampa Bay Lightning with a 3.3 total heading into St. Louis. The Blues have a 2.7 total. Braden Point is out tonight. New lines for Tampa Bay. They are going Kucherov, Brandon Hagel, Anthony Cirelli, Jake Gensel, Nick Paul, Mitchell Chaffee. Third and fourth lines don't particularly matter. Blues going Kyrou, Shen, Holloway, Buchnevich, Neighbors, Sod. This new Tampa top line is very interesting. Hagel and Cirelli have been running over people this season. You add arguably a top 3 winger I don't even know if you can argue it. He probably is a top 3 winger. In Nikita Kucherov onto that line. That is a wildly good line. In their small sample last year, they were generating a ton. They're 19,800, 12% top 2 stack, 5.4% projected ownership. You get 2 of the 3 on the top power play. Cirelli's on the second unit. The Blues are bad. Like, none of these lines worry me at all. Like, they're awful defensively, the Blues. The one thing that kind of saves them, they don't take a ton of penalties, but Cirelli and Hagel so far 5-on-5 this year, they've just been running over people. So yeah, Kucherov, that line should be one of the best on the night. You want to go to Gensel, Paul, Chaffee as a filler. That's an interesting group of players. We'll just put it that way. But you do get Gensel and Chaffee on the top unit. Nick Paul could see some top power play time. At 13-8, it does interest me as a filler because they're going to get one of the Buchnevich or Shen matchups, and those are advantageous matchups no matter who is on your line. Those lines suck defensively. So while I much prefer Tampa 1 here, I don't mind like a Gensel one-off, a Chaffee one-off. He's been priced on the top power play, you know what I mean? At least to start. So that's where I'm at on Tampa Bay. On the St. Louis side, like, I don't really want to play St. Louis here tonight. I don't mind Shen and Kyrou. I don't mind a Buchnevich one-off. But, like, it's not like you're getting a massive price or ownership discount. You can find lines in that price range in better spots for the same ownership or better. And, like, what's the difference between 2.9% and, like, 1.3%? On an 11-game slate? Like, you're already getting different there. Anyway, I don't mind Shen and Kyrou, but, like, I don't really want to be prioritizing Blues here tonight.
Yeah, it kind of sucks. Like, I do have some interest in a Shen, Kyrou, Holloway, but it's not like as if they're that cheap, right? Like 14,800. It's not as if they're priced as a filler. And, you know, we just talked, you know, that Islanders line, the Brock Nelson line we just talked about is super chalky, but, you know, they're perfectly correlated on the power play and they're cheaper. Ottawa 2 that we talked about at the top of the show, only $500 more expensive. I would much rather play them. So that's just kind of the issue is like, I don't think this line should be 14,800. I think it should probably be a couple $1,000s cheaper. It's just too expensive for me. I don't think it's a terrible spot. Tampa's not a great defensive team, but St. Louis just really hasn't shown much offensively this year. And with Robert Thomas still out, like I don't have St. Louis is kind of like Boston for me tonight. I don't have any interest in really stacking any single line. I'll never say no to like a one-off Kyrou, one-off Buchnevich, like those types of things. I think those are fine. But as far as full stacking goes, it's a pass. Tampa 1 does interest me. You know, you swap out Braden Point for Anthony Cirelli. You swap out Jake Gensel for Brandon Hagel. Honestly, I view Hagel and Gensel as fairly similar players, at least in what they can bring offensively. Maybe Gensel will shoot more over the long run, but Gensel really hasn't been shooting that much so far this season. And I think the biggest impact with Braden Point missing is just who finishes on the power play, right? Because Braden Point plays the middle of the power play. And in the middle of the power play, you don't really get a lot of touches on the puck. You're basically like the last person to touch it. You're the guy finishing the plays, which is why he does score a lot of power play goals. And has been so far this season doing well on the power play with Steven Stamkos gone. But as far as, you know, getting into the zone, setting up, the puck movement, like losing Braden Point, I don't think will hurt them that much. It's just whether or not they can actually finish the plays, which is something that Braden Point really excels at. Listen, the St. Louis penalty kill has really not been that good so far this season. They're bottom 10 by shots against per 60 minutes on the PK so far this season. They're bottom third of the league by shots against per 60 on the PK so far this season. Their goals against isn't like terrible. But it's, again, it's near the bottom 10 of the league. So like, I think this is a power play matchup that top line can take advantage of. If you want to go down to that Paul Chaffee Gensel line, I'd say fine. But I have a real it's kind of like that Minnesota problem. It's like I have a real problem stacking the Tampa Bay Lightning without Nikita Kucherov. Like that's just something I probably wouldn't do. So for me, it's Tampa 1 in this game. I think it's a pretty good matchup for them. They are one of those lines in that 20K ish price range that I would rather play. Like I would rather go and play Tampa here tonight at 5% ownership than Pittsburgh at 2% ownership. Like I'll just say that much. So I do like Tampa 1 here. There are a couple other lines that, I think I might rather play Carolina, but I think Tampa is in a pretty good spot here tonight up against a bad penalty kill. And I'm wondering if people really run away from them because Braden Point isn't playing. And honestly, Cirelli and Hagel instead of Point and Gensel, it doesn't change a ton for me. It's certainly not enough to where now that they're cheaper, like $3,000 cheaper or whatever, that I feel like I can't play them.
Yeah, it's not like when the Panthers are missing Barkov, right? Like who is going to carry the puck into the zone and set up the power play? Point wasn't that guy. Now Mitchell Chaffee in Point spot, maybe he's definitely not the finisher Point is, but like you're right, like that spot on the power play, they're just going to feed Kucherov, and he's just going to be wiring wristers all night. So like maybe Chaffee doesn't even touch the puck, but he has min price on the top power play. So
I mean, he makes a great, stuff him in for 2,500 one-off or whatever.
Yeah, I much prefer Chaffee tonight than I did Ivan the other night. Still salty. We'll get over it. No, I won't. Los Angeles Kings with a 2.5 total heading into Minnesota. The Wild have a 3.1. The Kings shut out the Preds in Nashville last night. Now they get a Minnesota Wild team. This is a defensive battle with some bad penalty kills. That kind of makes me nervous for DFS. I think Minnesota 1 is fine at 20,700, 11.7% top 2 stack, 11 or 4.2% projected ownership. It's not fully correlated. And after Kaprizov on that top line, the power play guys that I prefer are on the second line. So, I think what I would do with the Wild here is a Kaprizov one-off, a Boldy one-off, something like that. Like, the Kings have been very, very good at 5-on-5. They absolutely destroyed the neutral zone last night against the Preds. The Preds couldn't create anything. They couldn't get anything going. They gave up 16 shots on goal last night. Darcy Kemper shut him out. Will be Dave Rittich most likely in net, but, whatever. So you're relying on the Wild to score power play goals, and that's a decent avenue in this matchup, but I don't want to full stack the top line because of that. So I think while I think they're a much better play than Boston, I'm kind of treating them the same, like a one-off Kaprizov, one-off Boldy. You could do, if you want to get super weird and expensive, you could do Joe Eriksson, Boldy, Kaprizov stack. That would be an MME type deal when you're getting down to the last few lineups and you're trying to get some different, lineups in there. But honestly, my favorite thing on the Wild side would be a Kaprizov one-off. On the Kings side, the Kings have a pretty low total here, 2.5. The Wild are one of the best defensive teams in the league, depending on what metric you look at. Back-to-back on the road. Excuse me. In a different matchup, I'd have interest in LaFerriere, Byfield, Fogle as a filler. I just don't here tonight. You want a one-off Fiala, that's fine. You want a one-off Kempe, that's fine. But again, I don't have a ton of interest in either side stacking in single entry.
Yeah. You said by different metrics, two of the best defensive teams. These are the two teams giving up the fewest high-danger shots against the 5-on-5. Minnesota's number 1, Los Angeles is number 2. It's a brutal 5-on-5 matchup for both teams. Now, here's the kicker, is that neither team has a very good penalty kill. The difference is Minnesota's not taking a ton of penalties. They're at 2.1 times shorthanded per game this season, 4th fewest power play opportunities given up per game. whereas the Kings are at the complete opposite end of the spectrum, giving up the third most power play opportunities per game. Minnesota's power play has been lights out this season. That's definitely one thing that has helped carry their value. I think also Kaprizov has 3 empty net goals already. Not bad for the first month of the season. Yeah, that's Ovechkin like. So I prefer the Minnesota side here. Two things about LA. One, again, really bad 5-on-5 matchup for the Kings. They're on the road. It's a back-to-back. Also, Alex Turcotte got hurt last night. And in Los Angeles' in the top line's final 3 shifts, they had three different left wingers take Turcotte's place. I think one was Jeannot, one was Laferriere, one was Trevor Lewis. So we won't know what the Kings lineup really looks like until warm-up, assuming Turcotte can't play. So I just no interest for me in Los Angeles. For me, it is the Minnesota top line. It's another one of those things where I kind of agree with you. Like, I'm not stacking Minnesota without Kaprizov, but the thing is like if I want to do a power play stack of like Eriksson, Kaprizov, Boldy, at that point you're looking at like $24K or something like that, and it's just foolishly expensive. So I would say just Minnesota 1 is what I had the most interest in, but honestly, I think it's a one-off Kaprizov that interests me the most in this game. He's playing like 23 minutes a night. He's playing a ton of even strength and power play time. It is not a bad power play matchup for the Wild. They do have a good power play. Minnesota 2 is kind of where I think you're fine to go if you want to save some money, but it's a one-off Kaprizov I have the most interest in this game.
Yeah. And it's like the same problem I have with Edmonton. Always have like you can go play Edmonton too, but I always have a problem stacking them without McDavid. Like it just feels kind of silly stacking Minnesota without Kaprizov. At least for me. The Utah Soakers with a 2.6 total. Heading into Winnipeg, the Jets have a 3.5. This is a very flowcharty chart game. If you're new here, you're an NBA player, we have a Winnipeg flow chart. If they're in a good matchup, the flow chart says fade them. If they're in a bad spot, the flow chart says play them. Kind of gets skewed with lower ownership. This is a fairly good matchup with low ownership, so it's spitting out all different types of play them, fade them, sit them, play them. In a nutshell, I do really like Winnipeg 1. They're fully correlated. They haven't been super great 5-on-5, but there's nothing coming back from the Utah side that worries me defensively. The Winnipeg power play has been very, very good to start this season. 19.6. Like they're in that price range where I'd rather play them than Pittsburgh. I'd rather play Winnipeg than the Minnesota top line, the Buffalo top line. Now you're kind of getting into the nitty-gritty of like, do you want to play Winnipeg over Tampa? Do you want to play them over Colorado? And those are the questions you're going to have to answer for yourself in single entry. You know what I mean? In MME, like our boss, Jay Curry, he'll just be like, you know what? You just play everybody. That's why he never loses. But we like to break down for single entry and 3 max players as well, because we are both single entry players. Cliffy did dabble in MME for a while. I couldn't figure out an optimizer to save my life, but I've always played single entry in hockey. I do really like Winnipeg 1 here. I think this is one of those spots, if you want to get super different, you just full-on power play stack. You add in Ehlers, you add in Morrissey. But on the Winnipeg side, it is Winnipeg 1 that I like the best. If you're looking for a super cheap filler, I don't mind taking some guys or even full stacking Winnipeg 3. They're at home. They'll take the top, quote-unquote, top matchup for Utah, which would be Keller against their Cooley. They'll probably play, their 16, 17 minutes. They're 9,900. They're cheaper than the Flames. They're cheaper than the Islanders. They're getting 0.8% projected ownership. So, obviously the guys on the Flames and the Islanders are more talented, but that Niederreiter, Lowry, Appleton line has been pretty good offensively this season. So Winnipeg 1, Winnipeg power play for me. On the Utah side, this is a brutal matchup for them. Like the Niederreiter line goes out against top comps, so they'll take on the Keller against their Cooley line. these middle six lines for Utah, I don't love. There are lines that they can configure that I would like and I would be interested in playing, because that Connor Scheifele-Velarde line isn't great defensively, but then you are running into Hellebuck. But these middle six lines for Utah just don't do anything for me. So it would be that top line or bust, and that is an MME only play for me.
Yeah, one of the big issues I have playing Utah here tonight is the Jets just aren't taking any penalties. 2.1 times shorthanded per game. They're taking slightly fewer penalties. They're basically tied with Minnesota for third fewest time shorthanded per game. Utah, a lot of their value so far this season has been built off the power play. Dylan Genther, a third of his goals have been on the power play. Half his points have been on the power play. It's just really not a good power play matchup for Utah. Like that Schmaltz, Hayton, Michelli line has been pretty good in a small sample. The issue is like 13,400 is not that cheap. I think I would prefer Schmaltz, Hayton, and Michelli. Like you still get 2 out of the 3 guys on the top power play unit. You're going to avoid the Adam Lowry line, so you get a little bit better matchups at 5-on-5. 0.6% top 2 stack, 0.1% ownership. Nobody's playing them. I'm not targeting them in single entry or anything, but if I was 150 maxing, it would be Utah 2 that I'd be looking to maybe as a filler stack, but it is a Winnipeg side I like better. I agree with you on Winnipeg 1. Just the Winnipeg power play guys in general, and includes the top line and Nikolai Ehlers. Utah is taking a lot of penalties. They're at 3.6 times shorthanded per game in the season. It's tied for the 7th most power play opportunities given up. The penalty kill itself has not been that good to start this season by shots against per minute. They're 21st. They're down in like New York Islanders territory. And when you're in New York Islanders territory on the penalty kill, it's usually not a good sign. As you mentioned, the Winnipeg power play has been very, very good. 19,600. I think they're priced right. Like this is a line that honestly, if Gabriel Velarde's having a better start to the season, this line's probably like 21K or above. So yeah, I would rather play Winnipeg here than Minnesota. I would rather play them than Buffalo. I'd rather play them with Boston. I think they're kind of in that like Tampa Bay, Carolina tier for me, near the top of expensive lines I'd want to play here tonight. So basically Winnipeg 1. Winnipeg technically has like 3 playable lines, I think, here tonight, if you want to go down to the second or third lines. The second lines actually started to come alive by creation, because early in the season they were getting by strictly on percentages. Now they're actually starting to create some high quality chances. Over the last 5 or 6 games, those numbers have really, really improved. So if you want to go to Winnipeg 2 or 3, I'm going to say fine, but I really want to focus on the power play here. I think it's a really good power play spot for Winnipeg. So Winnipeg 1 for me in this game.
Yep. Before we move on, between YouTube chat and the Twitter live feed, we have over 500 people watching. Just wanted to say thank you. And again, if you are a Stochastic member, not NHL, but you are a member for another sport, the NHL tools are unlocked for you tonight. If you are not a member at all and you want access to the tools, the NHL tools for tonight, you can click the link in the chat. You can use promo code Stochastic15. It'll get you 15% off your first week or month. Let's move on to the Seattle Kraken with a 2.8 total heading into Colorado. The Avalanche have a 3.6. Big news here. Arturi Lehkonen is back for Colorado. They need bodies badly. Valery Nichushkin got cleared to start practicing with them. He won't be back for a few weeks, I don't think. They just need bodies. They can start moving people down the lineup now. They can start filling out second and third lines. They don't have to call up 7th-round picks from 2037 to play on the team. McKinnon, Rantanen, Arturi Lehkonen, Casey Middlestad, Joel Kiviranta, Logan O'Connor, and then Parker Kelly, Ivan, and Nikolai Kovalenko as the third line. That is a min-priced third line. Not that, Arturi Lehkonen, 3,500 here tonight. Slides to the top line, top power play. They're going to be choppy here tonight, but this is my favorite line on the slate. McKinnon, Rantanen, Arturi Lehkonen, 22,300, 34.4% top 2 stack, 22 0.3% projected ownership. I was talking to our pal Line Matching before this slate actually about it. I was like, well, at least he's more expensive than Kivi Ranta, who is up there. And then he gracefully reminded me that Lehkonen was $6K for most of the season last year. So this line is about $3,000 underpriced. They are fully correlated. Seattle's penalty kill has been bad. Seattle's just not a great team. I'm very much in on Colorado 1. You're kind of out of things to say. Lehkonen has a good long sample with Rantanen and McKinnon. Like, they can play well if anybody really, but Lehkonen's better than Kivi Ranta. He's better than Ivan. He's better than Ross Colton. Well, let's not go there yet, but he has a better sample with McKinnon and Rantanen. I'm in on Colorado 1. Colorado 2 is a bit interesting because Seattle's just not a great defensive team. You get Casey Middlestat on the top power play unit. Kivi Ranta and Logan O'Connor are very cheap. For 11-2, I don't mind them as a filler, but really, this is a Colorado game. Seattle, I wish they weren't interesting, but, Colorado's goaltending is awful. With all these injuries, Colorado hasn't been great defensively. I don't particularly love McCann, Beniers, Eberle at that price, 15-3. I'd much rather go play other people. 0.1% projected ownership. If you want to get to a little bit in MME, that's fine. I don't mind Gord, Tolvin, and Bjorkstrand as a filler facing middle six matchups of Colorado. They're 9,300. It allows you to fit in an expensive power play stack. I think a Tolvin in one-off is fine. Bjorkstrand one-off is fine. I don't really love Seattle, but Colorado's goaltending has been atrocious to start this season.
Yeah. Quickly on the Seattle side, honestly, I don't think Beniers has looked very good to start the season, and I think if you look at that Seattle's line's numbers with him and without him, they're basically league average by high danger shots created. And when you see how good McCann and Eberle have been playing, he's kind of dragging them down a little bit. The Stevenson line, I mentioned this on Twitter yesterday, shots from defensemen for NBA players that might be tuning in for the first time. Shots from the point are generally very low percentage shots. You do it too much, you're just creating a lot of shots without a lot of high quality chances, basically. The Stevenson-Schwartz duo does that at twice the rate of the league average. It's just shooting from the point. They don't create anything. So I agree with you. It's Gord, Tolvanen that I would have some interest in. If you are Minnesota power play stacking or something like that, if you do have a super expensive stack like that where you need a couple cheap players just to stuff in, I think it's fine. But Seattle's nothing close to a priority for me. Colorado 1 is the main event here. You talk about how good their sample was going back to last season. I mean, I wrote up Arturi Lehkonen in the picks article. I mean, I had to, just because of where he was priced. With Lehkonen on the line at 5-on-5, 15.4 high danger shots per 60 at 5-on-5. That's 33% better than the league average. It's really, really good. 4.7 goals per 60 last season with Lehkonen. That's elite. We're talking Toronto top line, Tampa Bay top line territory. Lehkonen is, at least $2,000 too cheap. It's a good power play spot. The only thing saving Seattle right now is the goaltending on the PK has actually been good to start the season, but they're giving up the fourth most shots against on the penalty kill. It hasn't been a pretty scene. And it looks like they're starting Philip Grubauer, which he's been the worst goalie for 13 months now. And I don't understand why they keep trying to force starts to him, but they're going back to Grubauer. So he's the worst goalie in Seattle's system. So this is a really good spot for Colorado 1. Yes, they are super chalky, but yes, they are the top line on the slate, 34.4% top two stack. This is the kind of chalk that I think that you do play, especially where 2 weeks from now, this line could be 25K on DraftKings. And I mean that seriously. So I really do like Colorado 1. They're my number one line on the slate. It's just They are still relatively expensive, so you have to go find a filler besides them. But the only reason you basically wouldn't play him here tonight is because they are going to be 20 to 25% owned, but they are the best line on the slate.
Yeah. And the minutes are going to be there too. It's like with some of these expensive lines, you kind of worry like, oh, will they get to 20 minutes? These boys have been playing old minutes until they get their full lineup back. Quick Party says Eberle might not be in the lineup. Winterton and Hayden are both in, but didn't say who's out. Eberle's wife is expecting. I mean, if you're playing Seattle, that is important news. I don't know if I'm going to be playing Seattle. Vancouver Canucks.
I can tell you definitively I'm not playing Seattle tonight.
There you go. You heard it here first. Breaking news. Vancouver Canucks with a 3.5 total heading into Anaheim. Honestly, that low-key blows. The Ducks have a 2.5 total. Vancouver going Miller, Besser, DeBrusk, Pettersson, Garland, Suter, Heinen, Bluger, Sherwood. Duckies are going Vetrano, Terry, McTavish, Zegras, Gauthier, Killorn, Carlson, Strome, Fabry. Big total for Vancouver. Not a ton of ownership. Pettersson, Garland, Suter, 13,000, 2.8% top two stack, 8.4% projected ownership. That line is always negatively leveraged. JT Miller, Besser, DeBrusk, 15,700, 4.6% projected ownership, 6.2%. Sorry, 4.6% top two stack, 6.2% projected ownership. It would be that Miller, Besser, DeBrusk line for me. 15-7 is a pretty good price for them. This is a very good matchup, 5-on-5 on the power play. DeBrusk isn't on the top unit. If you want to leave him off and add in Garland or Pettersson, that's fine. Not huge on the Pettersson line. We've talked about it for a couple weeks now. We both think Pettersson is playing injured. He's kind of confirmed it and then denied it and then just looked the part. I think if you're going to leave DeBrusk off, you add Garland for that top power play unit. But at 5-on-5, it would be Miller, Besser, DeBrusk. The Ducks side, yes, they have a low total. And, yeah, Vancouver has a very good penalty kill. But their goaltending hasn't been great. And Vetrano, Terry, McTavish are fully correlated. Zegras, Gauthier, Killorn are fully correlated. That line's 11,000. So, that's a filler line I'd be interested in playing. Yes, the matchup isn't as good as the Islanders. It isn't as good as the Flames, but you're getting much better ownership, and you're getting a fully correlated line. So, I'm not saying go out and play the Ducks here. I'm probably not going to get to them in single entry. But if I was making 150 lineups, I'd be under the field on the Islanders and the Flames. And Zegras, Gauthier, Killorn would be one of those lines getting some of the ownership in my portfolio just because they're 11K. They're fully correlated, and they have 1.4% projected ownership. Again, I much prefer Vancouver in this game. But if some Ducks get into, my portfolio in 150 max, I'm not going to kick them out.
It's worth noting that Zegras, Gauthier, Killorn, and Vetrano, Terry, McTavish are both correlated on the power play. Not that it's a good power play spot, but perfect power play correlation is better than not. Gauthier's looked good to start the season. They've had trouble finishing, which is honestly something Anaheim's had trouble finishing.
Oh, wait.
Well, I was going to say Anaheim specifically, but if you want to go there, you pervert bastard. But yeah, they've had trouble finishing for a few years now. Zegras, Gauthier, and Killorn's probably what I have interest in because they are perfectly correlated. They are 11K. They are at home. They have looked good in their small sample minutes so far. 19 high danger shots per 60 with Gauthier and Zegras together. It's only been a handful of games, but so far so good. It's just not a good matchup. For whatever else Vancouver is, they're still a pretty good defensive team. They do have arguably the best penalty kill in the league. And, Vancouver doesn't take a ton of penalties. They're below average in that sense. So Zegras, Gauthier, and Killorn, I agree with you. In 150 max, maybe have a few lineups with them, but they're not something that Anaheim's not a team that I'm running out to play here. It's that Miller line that I have interest in on the Vancouver side. You mentioned Elias Pettersson. We've talked about it on prior shows. His skating metrics are down like considerably from both last year and the year before. He's said he has knee tendonitis. It's clearly not getting any better. Miller, Besser, and DeBrusk, 20 and a half high danger shots per 60 in about 60 minutes together so far this season. That is really, really good. 6 goals per 60 at 5-on-5. Miller, Besser, probably going to play somewhere between 19 and 21 minutes, both on the top power play unit. Pretty cheap at 15,700, like not coming in with that much negative leverage. Anaheim's penalty kill, not very good. Lucas Dostal, he is very good. That's kind of the concern, is like Dostal, he's played parts of 4 seasons now in the NHL and has been pretty good in those parts of all 4 seasons. And he's been pretty good in the AHL. Like, there's a very real possibility we're just looking at maybe one of the next top 6 goaltenders in the league kind of blossoming right now. Like, that's the one thing that I worry about. But 5-on-5 matchup is good. Power play matchup is good. I like Vancouver 1 here. They're the line that I'm really interested in this game. And like, there is a high total here. I really do like the Canucks here, especially where it doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of ownership on them.
Yeah, if you're making a mid-range build, right, you're not spending up for a super expensive stack, like, I'd probably start here. Like, if you're looking to play like 2 lines in the 14 to 16K range, I'd probably start with Vancouver. Let's get to the main event of the evening. Columbus Blue Jackets with a 3.1 total heading into San Jose. The Sharks have a 2.9 total. Macklin Celebrini is back tonight. He is 3,900. That is cheap. I know he's only played 1 NHL game, but he had a goal and assist, 2 shots on goal, played good minutes. He's going to slide right into that top center role with Toffoli and Granlund. Second line is now William Eklund, Fabian Zetterlund, Alex Wenberg. Columbus going Monahan, Marchenko, Chinnikov, Fantilli, Sillinger, Pythia, Danforth, Voronkov, Olivier. Okay. Both these teams are abysmal on the penalty kill. Both top lines are fully correlated. The Sharks' top line, Granlund, Toffoli, Macklin, Celebrini, 16,000, 7.3% projected top 2 stack, 10.5% projected ownership. Honestly, that negative leverage isn't awful. Granlund's the center on DK, so that line's 2 centers, 1 wing. Not a huge deal. Granlund's the most expensive guy on that line, and Timothy Liljegren is running the top power play at 2,800. Jake Wallman is a healthy scratch, is not injury related, so take that for whatever it is. I am interested in that Sharks top line. It's not a very good matchup 5-on-5 though. That Monahan, Marchenko, Chinnikov line has been excellent to start the season, and yes, it has a lot to do with the Ransky Provorov pairing, but that pairing does go out with them a good bit of the time. So, I'm fine with Granlund, Toffoli, Celebrini in DFS tonight because of the power play. And yeah, it's the Blue Jackets. Maybe they'll get a couple chances 5-on-5 here. I am more interested in the Columbus side. 1, that line has a very good sample together. 2, they're coming in with almost no ownership. Yes, the price is a little pricey. 18,100. You can't fit the big boys in there with them, but that line has been excellent. They're fully correlated on the power play. Like, if you want to play the Sharks, that's fine. But like, if you have an extra 2,100, I'm going to play the Blue Jackets here in this game. I think both top lines are very much in play here. I don't particularly love the depth. I think a Wenberg one-off is fine, as disgusting as that is, but he's been playing 20 minutes and he is on the top power play unit. I think Fantilli one-off is all right, but it's really about the top lines on each side here tonight.
Yeah, those top lines are really the only lines that I'm interested in. This isn't a game where I'm necessarily interested in the depth. I did write up the Columbus top line in the picks article today. One thing I did mention is that the prices has come up a lot on Columbus one, right? 6,100 Marchenko on DK, 5,700 Chinnikov, 6,300 for Sean Monahan. What I mentioned in the article is early in the season, each of those players was under 4K. So 2,000 to 2,500 has been the price increase on every player on that line. But it's because of how well they have played so far this season. They are doubling the opponent in high danger shots per 60 minutes, 22 to 11. They are outscoring the opposition 7-2. So it's not like they're just riding a hot shooting percentage or something. They're genuinely dominating the opponent. Now, how much of it is the fact that they're playing 60 to 65% with the top pair the top pair has been good. I don't think it really matters as long as they keep playing 60 to 65% with the top pair, right? So despite them, getting considerably more expensive, 18,100, 4% top two stack, 1.1% ownership. I do like Columbus here. There's no 5-on-5 matchup concerns for me on the San Jose side. San Jose is one of the most penalized teams in the league. So it's not that their penalty kill is completely terrible. It's not good. Don't get me wrong. But it's the fact that they take so many penalties that makes their penalty kill look bad, right? 10 power play goals against in 13 games because they just keep taking penalties. Columbus's power play has been good. I really do like Columbus one here. They are one of those lines in that 18 to 20-ish, we'll say 21K range that I'm considering. Tampa 1, Winnipeg 1, Carolina 1, throwing that Columbus top line in the bucket as well. Going to San Jose, no issue with that. Because I did write up Macklin Celebrini, especially on DraftKings, where Celebrini is only 3,900. I did write up Celebrini in the picks article. They're only 16K, 7.3 top two stack, 10.5% ownership, but I think that's fine. Columbus penalty kill has not been good this season. Whenever Werenski and Provorov are off the ice, not so much of late, but especially in the first couple weeks of the season, Columbus was really struggling. But I'm going to be honest, I'll take the line that has been playing really good for a month now, and it is the Columbus top line, especially where San Jose just cannot stay out of the penalty box.
Yeah. I mean, the way in my head as the show's been going along, I try to figure out how I'm going to build a lineup based on how I want to build. The Sharks are easier to fit. That doesn't make them the better line in this game, but if I was starting my lineup with a line from this game, it would be Columbus 1, but I'm perfectly fine with the Sharks here. That is the 11 games. We should talk about some defensemen because you got to play at least two of them. At the top of the board, we have Cale Makar, Zach Werenski, Quinn Hughes, Victor Hedman, Brandon Montour, Jake Sanderson. It's been so long that I forgot that the Ottawa Senators were even on this slate, but here we are, Jake Sanderson. Cale Makar in an obviously good spot at 8,500. Zach Werenski in an unbelievable spot at 7,800. Quinn Hughes in a very good power play spot at 6,800. Again, I think all these guys are playable, the top three. I think for me, it would go Makar, Werenski, Hughes. Noah Dobson in a very good spot. Mackenzie Weegar in a very good spot. That is the top range. Who you liking in that top range? And I'm sure you'll have a bunch of mid-range and cheap guys as well.
Yeah. Noah Dobson, I think, has, we have to mention him. He's going to be pretty chalky here tonight. Like we were talking about earlier, no Adam Pelech, no Alex Romanoff. Dobson's probably going to play 25 plus minutes here tonight. He gets very involved offensively, shoots and blocks. He'll be chalky, but I think Dobson, at least at a point per dollar perspective, is at or near the top of the expensive defensemen. I like Mackenzie Weegar as well. I mean, it's a good matchup against Montreal. Weegar can both shoot and block shots, plus power play time, 23 to 24 minutes. I really do like Weegar. If you want to pay all the way up, Cale Makar does make a lot of sense. Seattle, again, not a great penalty kill. And Zach Werenski, we always talk about, if you want to play Columbus top line, probably add one of Werenski or Provorov into the stack as well. Adding Werenski, it'll get pretty expensive pretty fast because Werenski is 7,800, but he is projecting pretty well on Stochastic. Mid-price range, like Morgan Riley's running the top power play unit again for Toronto. That's definitely worth something. I'll mention Justin Falk. It's not really a great matchup for St. Louis, but St. Louis is having defense issues, much like the Islanders are. Like Torrey Krug done for the season. Nick Leddy's still hurt. Philip Broberg, he's out now too. That's half their blue line gone. Probably going to be a lot of minutes for both Parayko and Justin Falk. Getting some power play time. Josh Morrissey and Rasmus Dahlin still under 6K, both in pretty good matchups, both projecting well, both those guys here tonight. Also mention Brant Clark. He's looked good, really good for Los Angeles. Not really my favorite play in that 5 to 6K range. I'd probably rather play Morrissey or Dahlin, but Clark is a guy to keep tabs on. As Brad mentioned in chat, Timothy Liljegren still running the power play for the Sharks at 2,800 for super cheap. I'll mention Ryan Suter. Like, he's a healthy defenseman on the St. Louis Blues. He's probably going to have to play a lot of minutes here tonight. Jake McCabe is under 3K for Toronto as well. A little bit more expensive in that cheapest range, Ryan Pollock, 3,700, I believe. He's probably going to have to play a lot of minutes. He's getting power play time for the Islanders as well. Brandon Carlo's over 3 blocks per game so far this season for Boston. Maybe not a bad idea there. Matt Grzelcyk still getting power play time for Pittsburgh as well. Also mention Tyler Myers for Vancouver. He's not getting a ton of ice time, but he does get somewhat involved offensively, and it is a good matchup on the road for the Canucks.
Yeah, I watched the Rangers game on Sunday against the Islanders. Ryan Pulak was one shift away from playing half an hour.
Yeah.
So, and that was not an overtime game. That game was 60 minutes. So he played half the game. Let's talk about goalies. I don't really want to, but I guess we should. In the 8K range, if I'm going to spend up in the 8Ks, it would probably be for Hellebuck, Gustafsson, or Sorokin. In the mid-range, it would be Dustin Wolf, Linus Ullmark. And if I am spending down, Dose Stahl has the circle around him, but I also don't mind Swayman.
Yeah, I'll just highlight like the ones at the very top of Stochastic projections, and the 3 of them are Gustafsson, Kochetkov, and Sorokin. I wrote up Ilya Sorokin in the picks article. He would be my favorite of the 3. I would probably play him or Gustafsson. I worry about shot volume against Kochetkov. Now, I do think there's pretty good shutout equity against the Flyers. Like, you can see Kochetkov having like a 17 save shutout or something here tonight. But the issue you'd run into is like, well, what if he saves 15 to 17 in a 4-2 win or something like that? Like, I do think there's a shot volume issue for Kochetkov that Sorokin and Gustafsson don't have. Jeremy Swayman, 7,300. If you don't want to pay up, I think makes a lot of sense here tonight. I don't mind Dostal. I do worry about shot volume because the Canucks aren't a team that usually shoot a lot. So I think Swayman would be one of the cheap goalies that I would look to here tonight. If you want to go to Sam Montembeault, he's had a few rough games in a row. I think would be kind of understating it for Montreal. But Montreal does give up a lot of shots, and Calgary sometimes struggles to create quality, like we talked about earlier in the show. So I do think Sam Montembeault, a little bit more expensive at 7,800, but it's one of the better matchups Montreal is going to get. Certainly the goaltending is going to get this season.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, Calgary creates a lot of quality, not a bunch of quantity, or bunch of quantity, not a bunch of quality, although it is the Habs. They might get some quality. Colorado goalie Justice Anuin, I don't mind him, but if I'm spending up, I'd rather play Gustafsson or Sorokin.
That's the thing. If I'm paying 8K plus for a goalie, it's going to be Sorokin or Gustafsson.
Yeah. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
I mean, I'm going to go with the chalk, but he's a former Montreal Canadian that scored a huge playoff goal for them a few years ago to send them to the Cup final. So I'm going to say Arturi Lehkonen.
I thought you were going to say Max Pacioretty there for a second. He did not go to the Stanley Cup final.
No,
I should have been prepared, but I'm not. I'm going to go Kyle Connor.
I kind of like it, actually. I wrote up Kyle Connor in the picks article. I think it's a really good matchup for Winnipeg here tonight.
Looking at the GPPs, the 555 is full. The 20 is about 90% full. And the $5 poke check has 100 spots left. So good sizing, DraftKings. I'm not going to complain about it because it's just like I just go yell in my garage and hear my own echo. But we will be back on Thursday. I appreciate we almost hit 600 viewers. I know there's no NBA, but like for hockey, 600 is very good for us. I appreciate all the support. Cliffy does as well. I don't know why I never say we. I should say we. We are a team.
No, man, I hate the support.
Thank you guys.
Screw the support.
Yeah, that's why he wears salmon-colored sweatshirts. No, it's not. I like that sweatshirt. I wish I had it. But good luck, everybody, tonight. We'll see you in Discord. And let's go Rangers.
Whatever. Good luck tonight, everybody.